Today on Oh So Simply, we're talking about keeping your taxes organized as a nanny.
Woot woot!
Okay, so let's start off with a question.
Okay.
What do you organize your taxes into?
The tax binder. I think I've mentioned this before, but I love my tax binder. And I love it even more that I just did my taxes and it took us, like an hour and a half to do all of our taxes because we had the tax binder and we had it all organized and ready to go. So yeah, I love my tax binder. It is fantastic. It just makes everything super easy. So it makes everything super easy to access. It just gives us a place to put all of our paperwork and all of our receipts and everything as we get them through the months, all of our bills, so that they're all in one place, ready to go. Actually, I have my tax binder. Let me show you. So I do have like an idea for an Oh So Simply tax binder, which I'm actually really excited about. But in the meantime, this is the binder that I started with. Oops, it has some of my information, so let me flip it this way. This is the binder I started with. But yeah, it's just a binder that I put dividers into, which you can kind of see on the side. I do have templates and kind of my own spreadsheets that I've built that I use in my tax binder that I really like. And so because of that, I've been thinking that we should do an Oh So Simply tax binder. Kind of like an addition to the nanny binder, like a cute little add-on.
Okay. We'll look into that.
I'm excited.
So what do you need to keep in mind for receipts?
So for receipts, I mentioned it in last week's article, like how I keep my receipts, but basically all you need to know is when you get a receipt, right then and there from the cashier, step to the side, take out the pin that you always have in your nanny bag anyways, and right on the top, work, and then the family's last name so that you know, or the first name or the kid's name, however you want to organize that is up to you. But basically so that you know that it's a work expense and you know what it's for, especially if you work for more than one family. If you only work for one family, an idea is just to put work family because it's just the one family. You can even number the families if you don't want to have their last name on your documentation. But however you do that, if it's not a work expense for the family, then make sure that you put work and whatever it is, like if it's work clothes or if it's office supplies for work or whatever it is. But just try to make sure to write it down then, because sometimes when you go back, like at the end of every month, I recommend that you file your taxes, so to speak, like you organize your tax binder so that at the end of the year, it's not as big of a task. But that way, so at the end of the month, if you bought something on the 1st or the 2nd and you don't remember what that receipt is for, then you would know because it's right on the top.
Do you need a tax tracker?
Yes, you do. I recommend having a tax tracker at the end of every workday. You should fill it out because you will forget everything. You think like, oh, I'll remember, or like I can look back. It's so much more work than just writing it down at the end of every day. You write down the miles that you drove, the date that it is, how many hours you worked, how much you got paid that day or should get paid for that day. You know, all of those things. Just write it down that day. It takes about 5 seconds, and then that way you're not having to think really hard back weeks at a time.
Do you as a nanny need to set aside money for taxes?
So that depends on what kind of a nanny you are. If you're an independent contracting nanny, self-employed nanny, then yes, you do need to set aside taxes or set aside money for taxes, and I recommend setting aside 20% for taxes. Some people recommend more, some people recommend less, but I recommend 20%. Setting that aside for taxes from every paycheck that you get. And then if you're a W-2 nanny, you don't have to set aside anything because it's being pulled for you.
Is keeping track of taxes hard?
No. So the tax tracker that you fill out every day, it takes about 5 seconds to fill out the tax tracker. And then at the end of every month, I go through and I have all of my, I have my work credit card that I talk about from last week. I take that bill. I take the checking account statement because that has all of my direct deposit, so that's my income. So I have expenses, my income, and then my tax tracker, which has my mileage on it, and those three, and my hours that I worked. And those 3 things, actually, I also include my invoices. So those 4 things plus my receipts, you take those 5 things at the end of every month, and it'll take you maybe 10 minutes. Don't quote me on that, but maybe 10 minutes. It takes me about 10 minutes, but I've also been doing it a lot longer. So maybe if you're just starting out, it'll take you like a half an hour. But even then, that's 30 minutes. Like That's not a big deal. Take 30 minutes one day, put on your favorite album, and by the time it's over, that's 30 minutes. And you just go through and you highlight your expenses. And I think I'll go into detail. No, I'm just going to go into detail right now. I'll go into detail more too when we release the tax tracker so that you guys can like see it. I'll maybe do like a side-by-side video, maybe like a work with me. I could do a tax with me video. Oh my goodness. Okay, if any of you want to see that, a tax with me video, give a comment down below with like a thumbs up or like a money sign or some kind of cute emoji. And I will make one of those because that honestly sounds super helpful and it's super easy for me to make, but I think it has like a bunch of good information in it. It would. Anyways, so basically what you would do is you'd sit down, you'd highlight your expenses, make sure they match with the receipts that you have, set those aside, then go through your invoices and make sure they match with the income you have, set that aside, write the totals on the top of those pages, and boom, you've done your taxes for the month. If you do that at the end of every month, by the end of the year, you add up all of those big numbers that are on the top of all your big pages, and your taxes are done. So it's super, super easy. I don't want people to get overwhelmed with taxes, and that's if you're an independent nanny, which I think is better. It's better for me. It's not better for everyone, but it's better for me and quite a few nannies that I know. So that's if you're an independent contractor. Like, taxes take zero time. You think about it, 30 minutes a month. There's 12 months in a year, so that's 6 hours plus an hour and a half. That's 7 hours. That's like one work day, and you've done your taxes, you know? But you've spaced it out over the course of the year so that you don't have one dreadful tax day. You just have little bits. And then if you're a W-2 nanny, your taxes are basically done for you. You fill out your 1040 easy if you live in the United States, and you send them in with your W-2 and you're done. You can still have work expenses on top of your W-2 though. So be wary of those. Like, you can still count some things that I've mentioned in other articles and that I would talk about if you did a tax with me day. Tax with me, plan with me. If you want to see that and other behind the scenes videos, go ahead and check us out over on Patreon. We are over there, Patreon/OSSimply, also on Pinterest for boredom busters. I don't know about you guys, but we're still on lockdown over here, so boredom busters are life-saving right now. And that's Pinterest @OSSimply. Okay guys, until next week, peace out.